He wasn't born into fame. He wasn't handed opportunities. R. Lee Ermey came into this world in 1944 in the small town of Emporia, Kansas. Just a restless kid in a working-class household, constantly in trouble, always pushing boundaries. Teachers said he was wild. Neighbors said he was stubborn. But what they didn't know was that this stubborn kid was about to be forged into one of the toughest men Hollywood would ever see. By 17, while most teenagers were still figuring out what they wanted to do after high school, Ermey had already enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. 17, think about that. At an age when others were worrying about prom, he was preparing for war. And this wasn't a safe desk job. This was the 1960s, with Vietnam escalating into one of the bloodiest conflicts of the century. For the next 11 years, the Marines would shape every fiber of his being. He lived discipline, he breathed order, and he bled for his brothers in arms. He served a brutal 14 months in Vietnam, experiencing the kind of chaos most people only see in nightmares. By the time he was medically discharged in 1972 due to injuries, he had risen to staff sergeant, a rank that demanded respect. But the Marines weren't done with him yet. Years later, they would honor him with the title of Gunnery Sergeant, a rare tribute that made him gunny forever in the eyes of Marines and fans alike. And this is important because this wasn't just a title. This was his identity, his grit, his voice, his raw authenticity. None of it was an act. It was real. And that's exactly why, when he later stormed onto movie screens, he felt different. Because, unlike other actors, Ermey didn't just play tough, he was tough. And as we'll see, that authenticity would open the doors to Hollywood in the most unexpected way possible. Imagine this. It's 1979, on the chaotic set of Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. A film so ambitious and over budget that people thought it would never even get finished. The cast was packed with Hollywood names. The jungle heat was suffocating and the production was a nightmare. Enter R. Lee Ermey, not as an actor, but as a technical advisor. His job? To make sure the actors didn't look like clowns pretending to be soldiers. Hollywood had hired plenty of advisors before, most stayed in the background whispering small corrections, but not Ermey. He wasn't built for the background. The moment he stepped on set, people noticed. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. His stance screamed authority. He didn't teach actors how Marines walked, he showed them. And suddenly Hollywood realized they weren't dealing with another quiet consultant. They were staring at the real deal. Producers started giving him small roles because even in a 2-minute scene, he stole the screen. He didn't look like he was acting. He looked like he was living. And that difference? That was gold. But it was in 1987 that lightning truly struck. Director Stanley Kubrick was preparing to film Full Metal Jacket. Ermey was supposed to be the drill instructor advisor, nothing more. His task was to shape the actor who would play Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. But then something extraordinary happened. One day, Ermey started firing off unscripted insults, sharp, terrifying, and so blisteringly authentic that everyone on set froze. It wasn't just acting. It was like the real Marine Corps had just walked into the room. Kubrick, who was famous for being a perfectionist, saw it instantly. No actor alive could pull this off. Only Ermey could. Kubrick ripped up the script and rewrote the role for him. Think about that. Stanley Kubrick, one of the greatest directors of all time, changed his movie on the spot because of Ermey's raw, unstoppable presence. The result? One of the most legendary performances in film history. Gunnery Sergeant Hartman wasn't just a character, it was Ermey himself, unleashed. The tirades, the insults, the terrifying discipline, it was all real, pulled straight from his years as a Marine. And audiences could feel it. They knew this wasn't Hollywood fantasy. This was a man who had lived it. That role earned him a Golden Globe nomination and etched his name permanently into film history. Overnight, R. Lee Ermey wasn't just a Marine. He wasn't just an advisor. He was a star. But Hollywood was only the beginning. and the world was about to see just how far the gunny could go. Hollywood has always loved typecasting. One breakout role and you're boxed in forever. Most actors fight their whole careers trying to escape that trap. After Full Metal Jacket, R. Lee Ermey could have easily been locked into one thing: the screaming drill instructor. And honestly, nobody on earth could do it better. But Ermey wasn't about to be anyone's cliché. Yes, he went on to play plenty of authority figures, but here's what made it different. Every performance felt fresh, dangerous, and real. In *7 in 1995, he wasn't the loudmouthed Hartman anymore. He was the grizzled police captain holding together a city on the edge of collapse. In *Dead Man Walking, 1995, he shifted gears again, embodying the pain and fury of a victim's father. And in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot, 2003, he turned his authority into pure terror, becoming the kind of villain that haunted your nightmares. But here's the twist that stunned everyone. While he terrified adults, he also became beloved by children around the world. How? With just his voice. In 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, a movie that would go on to define an entire generation. And right in the middle of it was Ermey's unmistakable voice, booming out of a tiny green plastic army man named Sarge. The character only had a few lines, but that was enough. Kids didn't just hear a toy, they heard the gunny himself, commanding the troops with the same sharp discipline he had once used in the real Marines, and the audience ate it up. Parents laughed because they recognized the voice from Kubrick's war epic. Kids loved the character because he was funny, loyal, and brave. Ermey had done something almost nobody thought possible. He bridged the gap between war films and family animation. That versatility made him more than a one-role wonder. It made him a cultural icon. And if movies weren't enough, the gunny was about to conquer television screens, Saturday morning cartoons, and even video games. For most actors, television was a step down after Hollywood films. Not for Ermey. On TV, he found his perfect playground. The History Channel came calling, and suddenly, audiences got to see him not just acting as a Marine, but being one. Shows like Mail Call and Lock and Load turned him into a household name all over again. He walked viewers through weapons, tactics, and military history with the same booming authority that made him famous. But this time, instead of terrifying recruits, he was educating millions. And the secret? He was having fun. You could see it in every grin, every sarcastic jab, every moment where the gunny slipped out and the real Ermey was just enjoying himself. But he didn't stop at live action. His voice became a golden ticket. Hollywood animation loved him. He popped up in The Simpsons, voicing a colonel in one of their most outrageous episodes. He joined Batman, the Brave and the Bold, lending authenticity to a world of superheroes. He even surprised fans in SpongeBob SquarePants, barking orders under the sea like only he could. And then came video games, Fallout, Crash Bandicoot, and more. Ermey's voice became part of the fabric of early 2000s gaming. Players didn't just hear a character, they heard the Marine. His authority made even a cartoon Bandicoot feel more intense. That's the thing. No matter the medium, film, TV, cartoons, or games, his presence was electric. He didn't just perform. He stamped every project with his DNA. But while his career was exploding across every platform, the real story was happening at home, with the one woman who stood by him for more than 4 decades. Here's something Hollywood didn't expect. Behind the growl, behind the drill instructor fury, R. Lee Ermey was a family man. In 1975, long before Full Metal Jacket turned him into a star, Ermey married a woman named Nella. And while Hollywood is littered with marriages that last a few months, or a few years at best, his marriage lasted more than 4 decades. Think about that. 40+ years of loyalty, love, and respect, all while living in the most ruthless, temptation-filled industry in the world. Together, they raised 4 children, and for all his tough guy image, those who knew him say that with his kids, he was different. The man who could tear down Marines with one glare was the same man who cracked jokes at the dinner table, showed up for family moments, and passed down the discipline and humor that defined him. But the best glimpse into their love story came through one little nickname, Mrs. Gunny. On his History Channel shows and interviews, even when joking with fans, Ermey would affectionately refer to Neela as Mrs. Gunny. It wasn't just playful, it was respect. It was his way of reminding everyone that while he might have been the intimidating face of authority on screen, at home, he was a husband who adored his wife. That bond grounded him. Hollywood chaos couldn't shake it. Fame didn't poison it. And in an era where celebrity marriages often crumble in the spotlight, theirs became something rare, a real partnership, steady and unshakable. But while his family gave him peace, there was one name that tore open a storm every single time it came up. And when Ermey spoke about him, the words were pure fire. Now this is where things get scandalous. Hollywood loves its legends, and few names were bigger than John Wayne. To millions of Americans, Wayne wasn't just an actor, he was the ultimate war hero, the face of patriotism, the man who stood for courage, toughness, and honor. But not to R. Lee Ermey. If you ever wanted to see the Gunny lose his cool, just bring up John Wayne, because to him, Wayne wasn't a hero at all. He was a fraud, a phony, a man who wore the uniform on screen, but never once earned it in real life. Ermey's anger came down to authenticity. He'd fought in Vietnam, he'd trained Marines, he'd lived the pain and sacrifice. Meanwhile, Wayne, the so-called Duke, dodged service in World War II while thousands of young men bled on foreign soil. To Ermey, that was unforgivable. He didn't hold back either. In interviews, he spat venom. He said, and I quote, "I hated that son of a gun more than anyone in Hollywood, bar none." He called Wayne a coward, a phony, a poster boy for what Hollywood wants America to believe, but not what America really is. For Ermey, Wayne symbolized the most dangerous thing of all, glamorizing war without understanding it. Millions worshipped him as the model of courage, while real Marines carried scars that never healed. And the worst part? Ermey believed Wayne actually bought into his own myth, walking around like he was truly the war hero he only pretended to be. Bob Hope never pretended to be a soldier, Ermey once said, and I loved the guy. But Wayne, he puffed up his chest, talked about duty and sacrifice, all while making damn sure he never had to face it himself. That's hypocrisy at its worst. This wasn't a grudge that faded with time. Decades after Wayne's death, Ermey still seethed when his name came up. His hatred wasn't just casual, it was a wound that never healed. Because for him, Wayne represented the betrayal of every real serviceman who fought and sacrificed, only to see an actor worshipped as if he had done the same. On April 15th, 2018, the world lost R. Lee Ermey. At 74 years old, complications from pneumonia silenced that booming voice once and for all. But make no mistake, his presence hasn't gone anywhere. When he was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery surrounded by Marines, family, and admirers, it wasn't just the end of a life. It was the farewell of a man who had become larger than life, a man who went from a small-town kid in Kansas to a Marine in Vietnam to one of the most unforgettable faces Hollywood ever captured. To millions, he will always be Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, barking orders with terrifying precision. To children, he will forever be Sarge, the plastic soldier who made them laugh in Toy Story. And to those who knew him best, he was simply a husband, a father, and a man who never compromised who he was. That's why R. Lee Ermey's legacy endures, because it was never fake, never polished, never Hollywood make-believe. He lived it. He earned it. And in a world full of phonies, he stood out as the real deal. So the next time you hear his voice echo in a movie, a cartoon, or even a video game, remember this. You're not just hearing an actor, you're hearing a Marine. You're hearing a legend. You're hearing the Gunny.